The morning of Daniel's funeral, I ironed his favorite navy blue tie. The steam rose, smelling of heat and cotton, filling the quiet kitchen with a ghost of domesticity. I ran the iron over the familiar silk, the one with the subtle, almost invisible pattern of tiny anchors. He'd worn it to our wedding, a nervous splash of color against his stark white shirt. He'd worn it to the interview at the firm, where he'd talked about integrity for 20 minutes and got the job on the spot. And he'd worn it to that first hospital appointment, a brave, familiar flag as we sailed into unknown, terrifying waters. He wasn't there to wear it this time. His chest was still. The vibrant man who'd filled his clothes with life and movement, gone. But I still folded it, my hands trembling only slightly, and placed it beside him in the casket. A final anchor. A familiar for the journey. The chapel was a cavern of silence, smelling of old hymnals and lemon-scented polish. Rows of white folding chairs stood in militant lines, their emptiness a physical weight. The vacuum of sound was so profound I could hear the hum of the overhead lights. Except for 5 people. In the third row sat 3 of Daniel's co-workers, their postures stiff in their somber suits, looking like they'd drawn the short straw. Next to them was our neighbor, Mrs. Hawley. Her presence was a soft warmth in the chill. She was the one who had brought me lemon cake, still warm from the oven, every single Thursday during his chemo, a silent testament to a kindness that asked for nothing in return. The funeral director, a man with a face as polished and expressionless as the coffin's wood, approached me. He leaned in, his voice a low, respectful murmur that still seemed to echo. "Ma'am," he whispered, his eyes darting to the gold watch on his wrist. "Are you sure no one else is coming?" I looked past him, at the vast, yawning emptiness of the chapel. I thought of the phone calls that had gone unanswered, the texts left on read, the cousins and uncles and friends from college who had slowly, one by one, faded from our lives as the illness dragged on, their own discomfort a wall they couldn't scale. They were at birthday parties, at brunches, on vacations, living lives untouched by the scent of antiseptic and the slow, grinding clock of grief. A faint, wry smile touched my lips. It held no anger, only a vast, desolate understanding. They had better plans. The silence in the car was a thick, suffocating blanket. The chapel stood behind me, a solemn sentinel of goodbyes. But here, in the driver's seat, the real goodbye was happening. A severance far deeper than the one in the casket. My phone, face down on the passenger seat, buzzed again. I didn't need to look. I already knew. See, my entire family chose to attend my cousin Maya's engagement party. A final bitter buzz. I flipped the phone over. The screen lit up with a cascade of notifications. Instagram, the group chat named Family. 23 missed calls. All ignored. All from them. My thumb moved on its own, tapping the Instagram icon. And there it was. A carousel of stories, of vibrant, screaming counterpoints to the muted grays of my world. My sister Maya beaming in a fuchsia lehena, her arms thrown around my parents. A rooftop brunch drenched in California sunshine, glasses of mimosa held aloft, orange juice bright as a warning light, a ridiculous, towering balloon arch in shades of blush and bashful, my mom and dad wearing matching ivory kurtas, smiling like they hadn't a care in the world. Maya had known for weeks about the funeral date. I'd sent the details myself, the text a small, desperate plea in the family group. She'd read it. She'd picked the same date anyway. The astrologer said it was the most auspicious date for the next 6 months. You understand, right? And my parents. I could still hear my mother's voice, tinny and distant, on the phone last night. Funerals are so heavy, Beta. All that sadness, it just drains you. Maya needs us to support her big moment. It's a celebration of life, you know? A celebration of life. I looked at the empty passenger seat where Daniel's hospital bag used to sit. I thought of the weight of his body as I helped him from the car to the clinic, of the sound of his ragged breathing that had become the soundtrack to my life. That was a life. This, the balloons, the matching outfits, the performative joy, was just a show. The final story was a video. My family all together, laughing as Maya blew a kiss to the camera. She said yes to the dress, the caption read. The timestamp was from 11 minutes ago. Right when I was placing a navy blue tie, ironed with so much care, into a casket. I dropped the phone back onto the seat. It wasn't anger I felt. It was a quiet, tectonic shift, a final settling of dust. The 5 people in the chapel were my family now. The rest were just ghosts in matching clothes, dancing at a party I was finally, irrevocably, no longer invited to. I wasn't the golden child. Maya was. From the time we could walk, the spotlight was her native habitat. She cried over broken nails as if they were fractured bones, called solemn family meetings over college breakups, and orchestrated drama with the precision of a symphony conductor. A pelt, a tear, a well-timed sigh. Our parents' world would tilt on its axis. My quiet achievements, honor roll, learning to change a tire, nursing a wounded bird to flight, were pleasant background noise, a gentle hum behind Maya's roaring headline. She had the adoration, the unquestioning allegiance, but I had something she didn't. I knew what loyalty really looked like. It wasn't a grand performance. It was a silent, steady presence. It was the weight of a navy blue tie in my hands. It was the quiet of a near-empty chapel. It was the simple, profound act of showing up. But it wasn't just my family. The betrayal had another sharper edge. My best friend Lena? For 10 years, she was my sister in all but blood. She was there for the messy, unglamorous parts of my life. She'd held Daniel's hand in the hospital when the pain was so bad he couldn't speak, her small, cool hand a comfort over his trembling one. She'd brought me coffee that tasted of cardboard and sat with me in the sterile, beige-walled waiting rooms, her silence more comforting than any platitude. In the deepest, darkest trench of that war, she was a soldier right beside me. The night before the funeral, her voice was thick with tears over the phone. "I'll be there, I promise. I'll be right by your side." It was an anchor in the storm of my grief. That morning, as I got dressed in the crushing silence, my phone lit up with a text. Not from the family group chat, from Lena. I'm so sorry. I can't make it. My flight for the Garcia account presentation got moved up. It's a huge opportunity. Daniel would understand. Below the text was a selfie. She was already at the airport, wearing a sharp blazer, a travel coffee cup in her hand. She'd tagged the location. O'Hare International. She hadn't even been in town. Daniel would understand. The words were a knife. He would have understood a client emergency, a sick child, a genuine crisis, but he would never have understood a choice. I read the message once, then deleted it. The 5 people in the chapel, the coworkers, the kind neighbor with her lemon cakes, they were the ones who understood loyalty. It wasn't a currency to be spent or a flag to be waved. It was a quiet, unwavering presence, an anchor in the storm, even if that anchor was just a folded tie in a silent room. Her text came 40 minutes before the service. The phone vibrated against the cold marble of my bathroom counter, a jarring intrusion in the sacred, terrible quiet of the morning. I looked at the screen, the name Lena Hart, glowing with the cruel irony. The message wasn't long. It didn't need to be. So sorry, babe. Crazy story. Maya just asked me to give a surprise toast. It's a huge honor. I can't say no. You understand, right? A toast at an engagement party. While I was standing in a black dress, staring at my reflection and wondering how I would find the strength to walk into a chapel alone? Yeah, I understood. I finally, completely understood. I understood that the history we shared, the trenches we had navigated together, were just a prelude to her. They were the boring, unscripted rehearsal before the main event, an event with a balloon arch and a captive audience. I understood that for some people, friendship is a fair weather contract. They only stay for the good parts, for the celebrations that look good in a grid of photos, and they quietly excuse themselves when the foundation cracks and the real hard work of love begins. After the funeral, after I had thanked Mrs. Halley and the men from Daniel's firm with a voice that didn't sound like my own, I went home. The house was different now. The silence had shifted from anxious to absolute. I didn't turn on the lights. I sat alone in the middle of our living room, on the floor where his favorite reading chair used to be, and I held Daniel's watch. It was a simple, silver-cased thing he'd worn every single day for 12 years. The glass was scratched from a life fully lived, from fixing the sink, from gardening, from clinging to my hand during contractions that never resulted in a child. I brought it to my nose, closing my eyes. And there, beneath the faint scent of metal and old leather, it was. The ghost of his cologne, sandalwood and amber, the very essence of his skin, of his quiet strength, of the man who had never, not once, chosen a better plan. In that empty room, with the scent of him filling my senses, the last of the noise faded. The phantom buzz of the phone, the echo of my mother's excuses, the memory of Lena's bright, traitorous smile, it all dissolved into a profound, clarifying quiet. The 5 people in the chapel hadn't just been showing up for Daniel. They had been showing up for me. They had drawn a circle around me in that vast, empty space. A circle defined not by blood or decades of history, but by the simple, unyielding quality of presence. I clutched the watch, its hand still frozen at the time the hospice nurse had pronounced him gone. It was the only clock that mattered now. It was the moment my old life ended and the moment my new one, smaller, quieter, and infinitely more real, began. That's when Maya showed up, with her fiancé, Alex. The doorbell was a shrill, unwelcome sound tearing through the fragile silence I had built. I opened the door to find them standing there, Maya still glowing with the residual high of her party, her hand tucked possessively in the crook of Alex's arm. The scent of her perfume, something floral and expensive, clashed violently with the ghost of sandalwood still clinging to the air. "Sarah," she began, her voice a practiced blend of sympathy and purpose. Her eyes scanned the room, not meeting mine, before landing on the watch still cradled in my hand. "Oh, perfect. Listen, can I borrow this for Alex? He has a huge job interview downtown tomorrow, and he needs a good watch to make the right impression." I blinked, the words not computing. The world seemed to slow, the dust motes freezing in the late afternoon light. I said, "That's Daniel's." Maya waved a dismissive hand, her diamond engagement ring catching the light. "I mean, yeah, but come on. You don't need constant reminders of all that pain just lying around, right?" She smiled then, a bright, empty thing meant to be reassuring. "It's better that it gets used." Alex shifted his weight, looking uncomfortable but complicit. "Yeah," he chimed in, his tone casual, final, as if stating an obvious, simple fact. "It's just a watch." No. The word was a thunderclap inside my skull, though my lips didn't move. It wasn't just a watch. It was the map of 12 years. It was the witness to our early morning coffee runs and our late night worries. It was the keeper of the time he proposed, the time our daughter was stillborn, the time he took his last ragged breath. It was the last object that still held his scent, the final tangible echo of his pulse against mine. It was everything I had left. I clutched it in my hand, the cool metal a shield. I said nothing. My silence was a wall they couldn't scale. They left shortly after, their mission failed, their footsteps echoing with a lightness that felt obscene. Days passed. The quiet in the house deepened, becoming a companion instead of an enemy. Then came the phone calls. Not the calls of sympathy one might expect, but calls with a new, specific gravity. "Honey, you're so young," my mother said, her voice dripping with a concern that felt like a transaction. "All that life insurance money, you need to be smart. Maybe you should invest it with your uncle's firm. He's doing wonders in the market." The watch in my hand felt suddenly heavy. It was no longer just a memory, it was a test. And for the first time, I knew the answer. I would build a new world, a smaller, truer one, and I would guard its gates with a ferocity Daniel would have recognized. I would guard it with his watch on my wrist, its stilled hands a permanent reminder of what real love and real loss actually meant. "David always said family was important," my aunt reminded me, her voice oozing a sudden, convenient sense of legacy. Even Maya, between bites of her salad, couldn't resist. "What are you going to do with all that money, Sarah? It's not like you need it. You'll find someone new eventually, you know." The irony was a cold, hard stone in my chest. They had skipped his funeral, citing the weight of sadness, but they had suddenly, vividly remembered his money. His name, which they had avoided for months, was now a currency they spent freely. One evening, they orchestrated a family dinner, ambushing me with forced cheer in a brightly lit restaurant. "Sarah's ready to move on," my mother announced to the table, her voice cutting over my head as if I were a ghost. "I have the perfect guy for her to meet. He the doctor, single, has such nice hair." 3 weeks. It had only been 3 weeks since I had folded a navy blue tie into my husband's casket, and they were already matchmaking. Not out of love or a desire for my happiness, but to fix what they thought was my brokenness, to assimilate my grief-stricken existence back into their picture-perfect narrative. But what they didn't know, as they passed around plates and plotted my future, was this. I wasn't alone. Not really. During the 17 brutal months of Daniel's cancer battle, while they were out living their easy, uncomplicated lives,
I had built a quiet army. It wasn't built on blood, but on the bedrock of shared hardship. It was the night shift nurse who cried with me in the hallway. It was the barista who started my order the moment she saw my car pull up, knowing I needed every second of silence. It was the members of my online widow support group, their words a lifeline in the 3 a.m. darkness. It was Mrs. Hallie with her lemon cakes, a fortress of kindness in a world that had turned cold. They were my family now. And they were the reason I could sit through this dinner, my husband's watch a hidden weight on my wrist, and know with a terrifying clarity that I would never again need a thing from any of the people at this table. 6 months later, my living room is full of the right people. Maria, the night shift nurses, Daniel's old co-workers. We share food and stories. I started a nonprofit in Daniel's name, helping spouses navigating illness alone. Turns out there are many of us. We've learned a powerful truth. Family isn't a title you're born with. It's a presence you choose, a promise you keep when things are hard, not just easy. If you've had to build your family from scratch, if you've ever been left behind, you are not alone. This is your safe space. You are remembered here.